Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Heartbeat of Bartlett podcast. We've had so much fun putting this wonderful podcast together and sharing all of the treasures of the city of Bartlett and in the small business community within Bartlett. This podcast is brought to you by the Bartlett Area Chamber of Commerce and is sponsored by First South Financial. And we are so delighted. First South Financial is so delighted to be a sponsor of this awesome podcast and share all of the wonderful content that we're able to share. My name is Maria McLendon. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for First South Financial. And my co-host today is my friend and former boss, John Threadgill. John,
hello, folks.
Introduce yourself.
Well, I'm John Threadgill, and I'm president of the Bartlett Area Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, you
are. And
I
was your former boss.
All correct.
Yes.
Our guests today are very illustrious guests. We've got Mayor David Parsons of the city of Bartlett, and we've got Dr. David Stevens, who is superintendent of Bartlett City Schools. And our topic today is very exciting. It is talking about the 10-year anniversary and the embarking of the 11th year of the Bartlett City School District. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we got here and all of the work that was involved in getting to where we are today. And extra special news, every podcast episode of the Heartbeat of Bartlett is extra special, but this one is even more extra special because we're actually going to come to you in a two-part series. So in this first episode, we're going to talk a little bit about what happened to require municipal school districts, and then you'll have to tune in to the second part of this episode to learn about the drama and the turmoil and all of the heart that went into making the municipal school districts possible so that the families and the students in the city of Bartlett can enjoy the wonderful school district and amenities that they do today. So we'll go ahead and get started. And Mayor Parsons, if you would please introduce yourself and tell everyone about what you do for us.
I am Mayor David Parsons. I was elected in November of 2022, started serving January 1 of last year. So it's been now about 19 months serving as the mayor of the city of Bartlett. A lot of folks don't realize, but Bartlett is now the 11th largest city in Tennessee. And it's my hometown. Graduated from Bartlett High School at the time. It's called Nicholas Blackwell. And Bartlett's my heart. Bartlett's my home. We've got a great hometown and very proud of that. That's why we call it Hometown Proud.
Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Stevens, will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm David Stevens, superintendent of Bartlett City Schools, and I never did work for John Threadgill. that is maybe a good thing or a bad thing, Maria. I'm not sure. I am
a little of both, I think, actually.
I can understand. But no, all kidding aside, I'm superintendent of Bartlett City Schools. This is my starting 11th year, 2014. The greatest honor of my career was asked by the Bartlett City School Board to become superintendent and get those votes. I remember that was a very stressful night. I remember in the mayor's office meeting with the alderman before the interview. Yeah, just like I said, the greatest honor of my life is to be superintendent of Bartlett City Schools. As we say all the time, there's just no place I've really been.
Well, when you think about the city of Bartlett, one of the things that everyone talks about when they are talking about why they love the city of Bartlett or why they're considering moving to the city of Bartlett is how good the school districts are, or how good the school district is and how good the schools are. But as you just said, it's actually a really short history for the Bartlett City School District. Can you tell us a little bit can you take us back to 2010 and what the circumstance was then and what led us to where we are today?
In 2010, and I was principal at Bolton High School, and John Acton, who was superintendent of Shelby County Schools, reached out and offered a position as assistant superintendent of current instruction. And I tell people I had the greatest job in America from July 1 until December 21st of that year. On December 21st, that is when Memphis Shelby County Schools voted to give up their charter and relinquish that to Shelby County Schools. And so many times when I talk to my colleagues across the country at different conference things, that just makes no sense. But to kind of backtrack a little bit, what had happened at the time, there was some discussion back in the day about consolidating. I know John and I and Mayor had some conversation for consolidating county and city government. And there was a lot of annexation was happening going out through the eastern part of the city. But that kind of went away, and things were kind of quiet for a period of time. But then the legislature changed to become more of a Republican legislature, and there was a fear that Shelby County Schools was going to be able to go and get special school district status, which could have allowed them to have the school board to have taxing authority. As we know now, the taxing authority comes through the mayor and aldermen and not through our school board. They don't have that. So I think there was a fear, and I think at the time that wasn't the reason, my understanding of the reason why Shelby County wanted special school district status. But that was one of the byproducts. They were playing it out 2 or 3 moves, saying that could happen, and it could have negatively, they thought, impacted Memphis City Schools. So on that night, and I'll never forget, I went into that board meeting with John Atkin, and it was a packed house. And when they voted to give up their charter, I looked at John. I said, "John, we're not in Kansas anymore. The world is just turned upside down, because all of a sudden, you have a 50,000 student Shelby County Schools and 100 and probably 20,000 Memphis City Schools. Well, the 120 is going to be taken in by the 50. Well, we knew at the end of the day that was not going to be the work. In fact, at the time they said it was one of the articles of the paper said it was a hostile surrender, because they were going to surrender and they may give up, but due to population shifts, which definitely is as you elect school boards, the city of Memphis had the greatest population, was going to have the greatest amount of representation. So it was going to be a flip. So it really threw everything in 2010. Everything was in turmoil. Things were upside down. There was so much uncertainty. Then there was some talk, and I know because I was during that time I was assistant superintendent of curriculum instruction. Then I became a chief of staff, and it was funny. There was another chief of staff from Memphis and Shelby County, and we both looked at each other and knew at the end of the day neither one of us was probably going to be the chief of staff in the merged district. We still talk to this day and became great friends. And it was just, there was 2 different thoughts of how things should be done. And I used to tell people it wasn't that Shelby County was good and Memphis was bad, or Memphis was good and Shelby was bad. It was just 2 different philosophies,
2 different points of view.
2 different points of view. And all of us were looking at what's going to be best for the kids, what's going to be the best for all the kids of Memphis, Shelby County, including Bartlett. So as we went down that road, we looked up and there was a discussion of starting municipal school districts, because once Memphis gave up that charter and it was ratified through an election, that bell had rung. You could not unring that bell. So then the thought was, could municipal schools be started? And then that's when we started down that road. But it was a very unnerving time in the community, because there was so much uncertainty. As you said earlier, people want to know in their community, what kind of schools are we going to have? And I think a lot of times people will say, I'm not a big fan of public schools, or I don't think they're doing a great job. And then they ask them, well, tell me about your school. Oh, I'm not talking about my school's great. I'm talking about all the other ones I hear about. And we hear that all the time. So it was very, a very interesting time, very unsettling time. But I think at the end, everything worked out, as we will discuss a little bit later.
Well, so Mayor Parsons, Dr. Stevens said, the day that decision was made, he said, we're not in Kansas anymore. Can you talk to us a little bit? Can you give us a little bit more color on how that affected residents in the city of Bartlett? What was the reaction, and what were the fears? What were the feelings of the people that were represented in the city of Bartlett?
I think the fear was that she's going to have this huge system, which they didn't have no voice in, and they didn't have no control in. And there's nothing like having your voice heard and your concerns heard, and know that your kids are in a quality situation, because it's our future we're playing with, is our kids. So you began to hear residents talk about it, and you heard more and more grassroots efforts of how do we do this? How do we make sure our voice gets heard? And out of that, you heard a lot of grassroots efforts from a group called Build a Better Bartlett. And a lot of the people around at that time began to grow momentum, and you began to see the B's and the B's and the B's. And that B, they want to be heard. They want to be seen. and they wanted their vote to count, and they want to make a difference. And we felt like it's come a time to where we're a large enough city that we have our own police, our own fire, our own public works. We're a self-contained city, and at the time we was the 10th largest city in the state of Tennessee, and we have everything but a school.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a voice in so many of the things that we felt like that would complete the city. And there was nothing like we wanted to have our own municipal school system and have our own control, have local control. And you hear that a lot. Even then, as it is today, people want to have a voice. They want to make sure their voice is heard. And so as that group began to grow grassroots, Mayor McDonald at the time had come to the board and said, I think we're hearing the voice, we hear this heartbeat, and I think we want to move that way. And as things began to play out, it played here at home first, and it began to play out in Nashville. We'll talk about it later. And we just, we all rallied behind that. At the time, it was a different board, and all the board members, names you hadn't heard in a while, like Bubba Pleasant, Emily Elliott, myself, Jack Young, and Paula Sedgwick, and I can't remember.
Bobby.
And Bobby. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have forgot Bobby. But all of us was all united. The board was united. And it seemed like everywhere you look, every little entity that was talking about it, we was all landing on the same page and headed in the same directions. So we had a good recipe for success because the community was behind it, the board was behind it, and every entity that got out there just said, hey, this is what we want. We want local control. We want our own Bartlett Municipal School system.
And kind of going back to what you said earlier, talking about wanting what's best for our kids, there was a lot of emotion behind that decision as well. And I want to ask you, John, if you can talk a little bit about what was happening in the business community and how all of this that was going on with Shelby County schools, Memphis City schools, and then even the talk of the suburban school districts, how did that affect both the chamber and the business community in Bartlett and in all of Northeast Shelby County?
Yeah, well, it was a very interesting time, to say the least. A lot of drama taking place, and I was sort of sitting back and just watching the politics take place. But from my perspective, I used to try to sell Tennessee statewide, and I'd go in all the communities across the state, from Bristol, Johnson City, all the way here to Memphis. And when I moved into Memphis, Shelby County, I was really taken back by the fact that you only had two school systems. You had the Memphis City schools and you had the Shelby County schools. And I always thought to myself, well, why doesn't Bartlett have its own school system, or Germantown or Colleyville? And, of course, I would talk to people out in the suburbs, and they would say, well, this is the best system we got, And, of course, I shook my head saying, I don't know about this. But, hey, it is what it is. But when all this started up, of course, I was concerned because my background is economic development. And so I'm thinking, okay, what's the business community thinking about this? And interestingly, you had some business leaders inside the city of Memphis, who were in favor of consolidation school system, and they were advocating it. And yet, I was scratching my head saying, man, how can they think that? I mean, David, you said it was the 17th largest school district in the entire country. That 1 year it was consolidated. And I'm of the philosophy that bigger is not necessarily better. And so anyway, I think there was a lot of concern with the business community which way this was going to go. And in my mind, the best thing that could have happened, did happen, was the creation of Bartlett having its own school system, as well as Germantown, Colleyville, and all the municipal cities in suburban Shelby County. And let it be known that suburban Shelby County is over 300,000 people. Mm-hmm. And if it was its own city, it would be the third largest city in the state of Tennessee, and I think about the fourth or fifth largest county in the state of Tennessee, if it's its own entity. So it made no sense to me that the municipalities would not have their own school systems. But it was a law, the state law, that prevented that from happening. I mean, keep in mind, Bartlett was founded, Mayor, in 1865. And so you had a city that had been around for over 100 years, and had every amenity you could think of except its own school system. It didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what came about was, and some of the politicians that threw in the nuclear option to make this happen as far as consolidation, they were probably the heroes in some ways, because they forced everybody to step back and say, okay, where do we go from here?
Yeah. So a question, genuine question, the Suburban Shelby County Mayor's Alliance, was that in place before the discussion of the municipal school districts, or did all of the municipal mayors kind of come together and start talking about the school district, and is that what formed?
I think there was an alliance. I don't know how
How active it may have been.
I'm not sure if you call it a formal alliance, but they always talked.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knew what everybody was doing. And everybody's communicated, connected, and talked. Whether it's an alliance or not, it don't matter. They was talking and was moving in the same direction.
Well, I guess I mean, I don't necessarily mean alliance, but, it really, at that time, when all of the different municipalities were working to form their own municipal school districts, there was a significant reason for those municipal leaders to come together and kind of, form a coalition to fight this battle in the state.
There were some court cases that were going on, because there was some cases filed that they couldn't give up their charter. I know that got in federal court, and there was an agreement at some point that they could. I think John hit the point right, because I think when I had talked to Mayor McDonald and a lot of the city leaders, they had always wanted schools.
Mm-hmm.
But since there was a moratorium, I think it had been like 75 years since a new school district was 50 to 75 years a new school district was created in Tennessee. It was a moot point to even have the discussion,
mm-hmm.
because it was you couldn't for so many years. And the thing was, when we merged, we would go talk to the people in the state, and they were saying the people that did that before, none of them were still alive. No one had ever done this, and it was just it was total chaos as we went through that process. But I will say, because I was in the school district and I was on the side, and I couldn't really get involved with the municipal discussion and things, that I had to be very careful, because I was working for Shelby County, and then for a year I was with the Memphis and Shelby. But to sit back from that side and watch, and the unknown and the fear all
mm-hmm.
of us had. But the thing that was very, very apparent was all of the cities, how they came together and really spoke with one voice. And I really appreciate
that's kind of what
Mayor
I was alluding to.
was kind of that cheerleader, the one that got out there and handled it well, because his position was, this has really nothing to do per se with the merger. This has everything to do with, now we have the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Before, legally, we couldn't do this.
Right.
But it was a very chaotic time, and I think John's right from the perspective of an educator trying to manage that size of a district. It was untenable.
Mm-hmm.
It's big is not better.
Yeah.
There are so many great things that we're going to talk about that have happened in Bartlett and to Bartlett City Schools that would have never happened.
Yeah.
Unless that day, that December 21st in 2010, where they decided we wouldn't have been in that, and it would have had a negative impact for the kids in Bartlett, where now it's a value add and a positive impact and a huge impact for the city.
Well, to get further down into the weeds, and y'all back me up on this, but in my memory's a little bit weak on this, but another side factor in this consolidation, or the city of Memphis giving up their school system, was over funding of the school system. There was some kind of state regulation or policy or law that said that no city could reverse their funding for a school system, right?
It's maintenance of effort. Once dollars are given and your enrollment hasn't gone down, then those dollars have to stay. So it was like a ball of yarn
Mm-hmm.
in trying to unravel that. There was so many layers to the issue, and it was.
So basically, what had happened is that there was a very unique circumstance in our community that laid the foundation for significant change across Shelby County. And it was incumbent upon the leaders of our community, of the Bartlett community and all of the municipalities, to take this opportunity and turn it into something good for their constituents. So, dun dun dun. That's where we're going to end this episode. So you'll have to tune in to episode 2 to find out how these municipal leaders came together and how they worked together to form municipal school districts for the betterment of our communities, for the betterment of our families, and for the betterment of our children. So tune in to the next episode. You won't want to miss it. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.